أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه والسنة بسنة الدين أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam. Welcome to another episode of an Ayah Day series which keeps the shaitan away. In these short series program, we are discussing one ayah in each episode to understand the Quran better and to practice it and be able to protect ourselves from shaitan. Our ayah today is from Surah Jathiyah, Surah number 45, verse number 23, in which Allah talks about the dangers of desires and lusts. The hawa nafs. Hawa in Arabic language just means your soul's desires, attraction, the thing that lure the soul towards something. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking a question. It's istifham. The ayah starts off with a question. أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Have you not seen that person who has taken as God his desires? Desires could be anything. It could be anything that a person wants and desires and lusts for it and wants to quench it. It could become an addiction. And that is why when the desires become an addiction, the person goes astray and deviate from the path of Allah. And that is why we see in another surah, another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. And as for that person who fears the status and honor of his Lord and curtails their soul from the hawa, from the desires, فَإِنَّ لَهُ, for them is Jannah. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, have you not seen that person? Have you seen that person? Why? Why is Allah asking us to see that person as a lesson, as an ibrah, that we don't become like them? In other words, Allah is saying that if you see on the streets people who have taken their desires as God, don't become like them. Do not become one of them. Do not follow them. Rather, stay away from them and maybe make dua for them. And that is why Allah says that these people, وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ, and Allah has knowingly led them to go astray. These people, no matter how much advice you give them, how much nasiha you give them, how much knowledge and counseling you give them, the knowledge does not permeate. It does not enter. These people have become stubborn, rigid. So Allah it's like Allah has written them off. It's God is moved. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَخَتَمَ عَلَى سَمْعِهِ وَقَلْبِهِ وَجَعَلَ لَبَصِرِهِ غِشَاوَةً. Allah has put a khatam, a seal on their hearing. They can't hear anymore. No matter what you talk to them, they're not paying attention because for them the desire is God. Now, why does Allah compare desires to God? I mean, does that mean that you begin to worship your desire, like you make a statue of your desire, or painting, or a picture? Do you begin to bow and prostrate in front of the desire? No. What it means is that you give so much importance and value and priority to your desires that you neglect all the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You neglect all your duties and responsibilities to yourself and your family members and to the society. You begin to give so much priority and importance to your desires that you neglect this life totally and become engrooved into that lustful, desirous environment that sucks the person in. And as they are getting sucked in, their hearing is kind of sealed, and their heart is sealed up. Heart in the sense that heart is where the desire erupts, and it then feeds into the brain, and the brain then makes the calculation, how can I satisfy my desire? And then the brain will process the calculation and initiate the actions for the soul to trek that path to fulfill that desire. So Allah puts a seal on their hearts and their hearing, so they're not even thinking about Jannah and Jahannam. They're not even thinking about Akhirah. They're not even thinking about Prophet Muhammad. They're not thinking about anything except desire. It's a kind of thing like an addiction. Like if somebody is addicted to drugs or narcotics, or somebody is addicted to any kind of intoxication, and then no matter how much you try to get them away from that addiction, they keep falling back into it. So desires is also like an addiction. And then Allah says that they can't even see. On their eyes, there's a curtain. So Allah says, فَمَنْ يَهْدِي مِنْ بَعْدِ اللَّهِ, who will guide this person after Allah? I mean, Allah is the only one who can guide. None of the human beings can guide this person who's addicted to their desires. They're not worshiping their desires, but they're involved 24/7 in their desires to such an extent that they are missing out on their obligations for deen, religion, dunya, family members, relatives, etc., society. These people have become like addicts who are addicted to something, and they don't see anything but their desires. So it becomes very difficult for them to understand and comprehend what the environment and what the Quran is asking of them. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that no one can guide them, no one can, help them in any way in that perspective. And that is why it's very important to understand, my dear brother, sister Islam, that these people who are engrossed in their desires, they will not have the hararatul iman, the temperament of faith. Faith becomes subdued. What makes walaikum assalam wa barakatuh, sister, what makes somebody lose their deen? It's their desires. Because when a person is so much engulfed in their desire, they don't think anything outside the box. They have a tunnel vision, narrow-minded. All they want is somehow satisfy their desire. It becomes greed and selfishness, the whole 9 yards circle into it. And the other thing is, what kills the desires? Iman, taqwa, faith and the fear of Allah and khashya and devotion to Allah. That is why zikr is so important. A lot of times people say, how can I save myself from falling into the trap of my desires? Is zikr of Allah. That is why in this ayah, Allah is saying that وَخَتَمَ عَلَى سَمْعِهِ وَقَلْبِهِ. Allah put a seal on their ears and a seal on the heart. So if the heart becomes sealed up, clogged up, there's no way this person is going to come back away from their desires. And that is why regarding the heart, also Allah says in the Quran, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ. Verily with the remembrance of Allah do the hearts come to rest. So so therefore, and a person does the dhikr of Allah, their heart will become resuscitated, revived again. And that is why it's very important to do tazkiyatul nafs, tazkiyatul qalb, purification of the soul, purification of the heart. The desires can snatch a person away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but the best way to kill the desires and come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to do tazkiyatul nafs, purification of the soul. Purification of the soul is a very holistic action. It's not just doing dhikr from the tongue and enough, but purification of the soul is a full, comprehensive, holistic aspect of things to be done step by step, of which one of them is dhikr of Allah. And then number 2 is praying extra nawafil. Number 3, praying at the time of tahajjud. Number 4 is tilawat al-Quran. Because if we do not recite the Quran, or we don't have attachment to the Quran, the heart begins to become stiff and hard and harder. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and save us from the desires and from becoming slaves to the desire. Really what this ayah is saying, that the person becomes a slave of their own self, of their own nafs. And so therefore they can't think right, they can't even look right, they can't even differentiate between right and wrong, because everything has become for them focused on one thing, and that is, I want to fulfill my desires. That's why Allah is saying in the ayah, have you seen that person who has taken as God their desires? Whatever they wanted, desired for, they quench it, they fulfill it. Just like a person who's thirsty and wants to quench their thirst, and they keep drinking water. In the same way, a person who is thirsty for desires will keep on satisfying their desires, and therefore keep getting away and away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and from the dhikr of Allah, and from the ubudiyyah of Allah. It's this way you can say in Arabic language, a person becomes abdun nafs, a slave of the soul. Whatever the soul desires, the person fulfills it. Whatever the soul wants, the person fulfills it. Whatever the soul wishes, the person fulfills it. Controlling the desire is the name of the game. Controlling the desire is the whole key to success for akhirah, for Jannah. If we can control our desires and have it in a moderate, balanced fashion in this world before our death, then we are truly the successful one for the akhirah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us and protect us and save us from our desires and from becoming the slaves of desire. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alamin wa salatu wassalamu ala